All right, guys, welcome back and good morning. Happy Saturday. Is it Saturday today? Yeah, Saturday morning. So I want to review some of the tickers that I'm looking at for my swing trades. I have my 25K challenge account up here. This is the new account that we're going to be using for swing trading like we've been talking about. These are some tickers I'm looking at for potential swing trades. Let me go ahead and first talk about a little bit of an overview here, because right now we're in the middle of earnings season, and I want you guys to kind of keep that in mind. Be a little bit careful because sometimes when news comes out, there's big swings in the market, especially with earnings. And I typically don't like to trade up to news, and that is actually why we closed our Sonos position. I'll talk about this one as well, and I'll show you guys the whole trade review as well. But according to Investopia, I did a little bit of a recap here. Just in case, because earnings season is one of those terms that gets flung around quite often. And basically, at the beginning, right here, each earnings season begins 1 or 2 weeks after the last month of each quarter. So we have the quarters ending in December, March, June, and September. And right now, since we're kind of in that mid-July zone, mid to late July, we have a lot of earnings coming out, especially even into August. The first week of August, we have a bit more. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. And buy the rumor, sell the news is kind of a very, very good, I would say, investing advice, because when you're anticipating the news, you're basically playing, I don't know, chess without seeing the other side of the field. So it's much nicer to make your trades after you kind of see what's been going on. Also, just a little update. These thoughts are my thoughts alone, and I change my orders a lot. They're not meant to be followed. This is just for education and entertainment purposes only. I love to see what your guys' comments are all the time, and then in the live streams we discuss these trades as well. But at the end of the day, everything is up to you to make your own decisions, and your decisions are yours alone. So let's get started here with AAL. The first thing I really want to point out is if we go to the daily chart, which we are on now, we zoom in here, we have the 180-day moving average here between $18 and $19. So we have this potential room for upside here, I would say. Whoops, I don't know why it's not clicking. They're about 50% before I would probably be closing out a trade. But basically, this is big upside potential, and we know that $11 is roughly big support. We've kind of tested this area multiple times in these zones. Let me go ahead and kind of draw a line here at about $12, and then we have this really key $10 zone, and then I would really kind of argue again here at about 11. There's some key support, and if we go now to the 4-hour, we can see this a little bit better here, because these are zones that we've bounced off many times. Found support in here, crashed, bounced, retests, many retests in this area, especially when you dip, retest, dip below, try to break out, retest. So these are really critical zones. Here you can see that we found support back above 10, we retested 12, came back to 10, $11 is kind of that critical question mark zone, and then yeah, so now we're kind of back in this territory after we had one of these try to moves back to the upside. And if we just go to the 1 hour, which is another time frame I tend to use quite often for my swing trades, you can kind of see that it looks like we might be setting up a little bit of a formation here called the Adam and Eve chart pattern. And if we go to my my last trade, so this is an open trade right now with AAL, and we could probably even move this in a little bit so we have a bit more screen size, although then my face is in the way, I think. Okay, yeah, I'll just leave it here. So AAL is one of these open trades, and let me just go ahead, and we actually made a video about AAL if you guys want to check it out. So we have right now a position size of $2,500 roughly, and we've been kind of averaging down into this trade a little bit right here in this area. I should have probably done one more average, but I'm roughly near my full-time or full position size right now. I probably could have took some profits in this area, but I wasn't really watching it. Oftentimes I'll put a limit order to sell. I should have done it around 12 and then honestly be re-averaging down. That could have, warranted like a 5% trade or so. So that would have been a pretty good little mini trade to do and then average back down. So a little bit sloppy on my end that I didn't do that. So I'm looking right now for the bigger break back above 12, and I'll probably will cut my losses if we break 11, but more so 11.5 I think is a very key area, especially if the volume is big. But coming back to the Adam and Eve thing, This is a pretty classic old school pattern here. You can see that it's typically followed by a spike down and then a rounded bottom and then curls back up. And oftentimes you'll see a key moving average that we break out of, just like this one. I'm not sure what moving average this is, probably a daily, because we are on a daily chart. It could also be weekly. And anyway, no, it's definitely daily. So we came down here probably like, I don't know, 180 day or 150 or maybe 200. So we came down here, retested and tested again, and then we broke out. We had a pullback, nice to retest the 180 day or whatever moving average this is, and then continued an upwards trend. And if we go to the hourly chart here, this is kind of what I'm looking for. We had kind of a spike down here. Now I'm looking for the rounded bottom, and then I'm looking for that continuation above this 180 tick moving average. So that's what I'm looking for this AAL reversal. Now you got to be careful here. There is a lot of news regarding it. People are lowering their analysis. I mean, AAL is having a bit of a rough quarter, but what I do like about AAL is the fact that their earnings came out already, which weren't too great, but the fact that they didn't sell off past earnings is actually a very, very good sign. I mean, everyone now knows the different moving parts, and I'm not going to discuss the earnings here in this video because, you know, again, that's something you guys can go on your own time, but I just want to kind of point out the fact that the news is out, and now we can safely say like, okay, I don't have to worry about a flash crash kind of going in anymore. So I did kind of average in before the news, so that was a little bit risky on my end. But it shows that, you know, AAL is near some huge support. It's sold off quite a bit. So yeah, obviously anything can keep going down. But I feel like temporarily we might see some sort of low here. It's pulled back over 80% from the high. So that's kind of what I'm looking for my AAL trade. And I'm just going to keep documenting it here as it goes. By the way, guys, in the video description below, the first comment, I will link to this blog post, so you guys can check out anything here as well. So INTL is another ticker I kind of want to look at a little bit. I know, wait, INTC, I think it is, not INTL. I think I wrote this wrong. Yep. I was like, wait, INTL, that's not it. So this one obviously fell off a cliff. I think they had not just their kind of earnings coming out, dragged earnings lower. They're also kind of in the news because they had some, what was that, kind of shady, where they were trying to cover up, or where they were giving out false information about the actual specs of some of their last chips. I remember reading about that. I can't find it right now, but again, something you guys should look into your own time. Let me see what I wrote about here. So Apple, one of their biggest clients, obviously now is making their own chip. We were talking about that in a little bit. We could look into Apple, but the new chip is called Apple Silicon, which is their new kind of chip, which is going to be replacing the Intel chip. So that's a huge client that Intel will still have, but, you know, is kind of, you know, doing it themselves. So that's a really, really important thing to zone. Notice $50 is big key support. So that's, oh, I already wrote that down here. So that $50 is one of those kind of whole dollar and half dollar zones, is always one of those zones that I like to really, really focus on. You know, $10, $5, these areas tend to be good pivot zones. So if we go to Intel, you can see we dipped to 50. We actually dipped a little bit below 50, which is some of my favorite times to actually go into a trade. So like, let's say $2 is big support, right? And we crack $2 with low volume intraday, and we pop rack above $2. That's oftentimes a big buy indicator for me. So if we go to the hourly, you can see here we pulled to $50. We did crack that, but we pulled right back above it. So this could have been a really, really decent day trade with bigger size. Really, really kind of sweet move here, I gotta say. Unless you're long Intel, then it's actually probably pretty depressing. But overall, would I look for a dip buy on Intel at 50? To be honest, I'm not sure. You know, I think this company has been dropping the ball a little bit, and I do think we could see another dip. Now, if we do see a bigger dip below 50, I probably would consider buying it, especially near this double bottom here at 45 or so. So I want to kind of just, you know, draw out some of these zones here to make it a little bit easier to recognize. So 50, and then we have this kind of $45 zone. Let me just see if I can move this a little higher without breaking my wrist. Yeah, okay, so there it is, big support here. So I don't know. I probably won't go long yet, but I think we could see a bit of a bounce here before a continuation, but I would be pretty weary. Right now, I do know that you would, the risk reward isn't that great. So the reward maybe is still like 55, that's a 10%, and you're risking here, a 10% dip. So that's not really, really nice. With AAL, let's say we close out this trade, and there's nothing wrong with closing out a trade. There's nothing wrong with being wrong, but we entered here roughly around 11.5. So if we wanted to sell here at 18, we have 60% potential reward, and then our downside here is about 12%. So that's a really, really good risk reward. You do that trade 10 times, and if you're right 50% of the time, you're going to be making a nice return. And that's like the key essence with trading. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about managing your risk, taking good risk reward trades. And I don't see INTL being a good or INTC. Sorry, I always mix that up. INTC. Intel Corp, that's why there's a C, being a good risk reward trade. Now, if it's down to 45, I would probably consider this a good risk reward trade, because it either keeps pulling back, might see support here, and then we have maybe now a 1 to 2 risk reward trade. So I think Intel at that point is much better. One thing to consider here, AMD had an absolute rally yesterday. They're taking a lot of Intel's market share, and they had this big breakout and pullback. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt a little bit for missing this one. This is pretty obvious. We had a big flat top breakout, and you guys know I love these flat top breakouts. We have not just a breakout with big relative volume, but we pull back here, have a retest, and then have a rally. That's what I love to see. I love these kind of setups. I'm not gonna probably buy AMD anymore. I would wait for a consolidation, maybe back to the 9-minute EMA, some sort of break, probably below 65. So I don't really see myself jumping in on AMD at this point. I will put an alert here, but like I said, to me it's a bit overextended right now. I would be taking profits on the break of 65 probably if I was watching this. So I probably would have took profits early, or I don't know. It's always hard to say what you would have done, but I would have loved to buy this dip. And as a confirmation of that, that's exactly what I did with Sonos. So Sonos, we had a nice breakout here. I bought the pullback to 16, and then I sold here on the clear retest. So this was a really, really nice, I think I made like 8% or something on this trade. And now could be a potential rebuy. And the big thing about this one is if we go to the hourly, you can see I was able to manage my risk really well on this one. Let me just, we're on the one. I was like, wait, this is a really weird hourly chart. It's because I went on the 1 minute. So here I was like, okay, if we break 16 with big volume and we start trending downwards, I'm gonna close my position on a retest of this support. We did break it. The volume wasn't that big. We bounced right back of it, back above the 16, became support, and then I basically sold as we were getting close to 17.5. And the big reason I sold on 17.5 is because this breakout candle was nowhere near the volume I wanted to see, and I thought that was a big red flag, so I closed my Sonos position. We were talking about it in the live stream as well, so nothing really new there. And you guys, under Sonos, you guys can see that I have a trade documented here, so you guys can always go through this trade and review it. I have all the videos related to it. I have my thoughts on it. I have the documented entries and exits. You guys can see, position size, P&L, percent, and P&L dollars. So this was overall a pretty sweet trade. I'm pretty happy about it. I mean, it was no blow away big percentage size, but I felt like it was pretty straightforward, and that alone is why I'm pretty happy about it. So I would like to buy NKLA on a bigger dip back. Let me quickly make sure the video is still going. I would like to buy NKLA on a bigger dip back, but it's right now with the earnings coming out on the 15th or the 5th of August. I just want to be a little bit careful there. Sono, watch out, 8.5 earnings. So even if the earnings are good, which they could be, there's a good chance it'll still pull back, because this was a really strong move, 170%. I'm sorry, but anytime there's a big move like this, there's oftentimes a little bit of consolidation. And I could see that consolidation being under 16. I could even see it going all the way back to $12 or so, because this is big multi-month support and resistance. And I would actually like a pullback back to there. Now that's a 30% pullback. Maybe that's a little bit too aggressive. Maybe we're going to get something more into the 20s. That would be more of a reasonable pullback. any pullback over 30% isn't really a pullback anymore. That's actually a trend reversal. So I don't really think we're going to have a trend reversal. So I'd probably start averaging down into the 14s and then maybe into the 13s for a Sonos trade. And then we'll see if we can break back above 20, because honestly, a break back above 20, that is really my goal. And I think we might have some really, really nice momentum if we break 20, go to 22, and then maybe even break the all-time highs, and then Sonos could be an absolute ripper. Sonos has been really, really trending up. Definitely check out the video I posted about Sonos, and if you're interested in more about Sonos. And then another thing I would probably argue is I was actually at IKEA a few months back, and there was a whole Sonos section inside of IKEA. I found that pretty impressive. So I love seeing partnerships in companies. I find that always a really good reason to just jump on a stock. If you already understand that, if you use the product, if you like the product, yada, yada, and then you see these big partnership deals, it means this company is flying. Another ticker kind of worth mentioning here, NKLA. I know this was a hot ticker. I'm not trading it anymore. You guys do know that I did a dip trade on this one. I bought here on the big pullback, and this was a risky trade on my end, so I used very small position size. And the reason I did this dip is because, and actually, this chart pattern shows it pretty good too, but I'll just do it on here, is because I knew intraday there at 55 is a psychological support and resistance zone. So 55, we went down to it. I entered a little bit early. I front run here, and then I bought and I basically sold on the retest of 60. It was a very simple trade. A lot of people were wondering, Alex, why are you buying NKLA? This thing is coming out with warrants. This thing is falling off a cliff. And I'm like, I know that it's falling off a cliff, guys. I know that. But I also know when something dips, oftentimes there's a quick little bounce. This was a 20% dip. 20% is a beautiful zone for a possible bounce near psychological support and resistance. My goal was not to hold this past $70 or so, not to hold it past 60. It was not my goal. I knew there was a high chance that there's going to be a retest. Now, if I was wrong and we sold off all the way here, I would be this was a high risk, high reward trade. Actually, it was a high risk, not really the best reward. So this is not like the ideal trade. And that is why if you go here, you can see that I use very small position size. So this is more of like wet the whistle kind of trade, a little bit of a fun trade. I only used around $1,000 on this trade. So I used half the position size as the Sonos trade. Yeah, that's just a little bit of a recap there. And I knew I had to be quick with this one. And in the video, I talked about me wanting to sell pre-market. I did not want to hold into the market open because I knew there was going to be stops executed. So I knew the market open was most likely going to look like this. And that's why I sold pre-market. It was very, very kind of straightforward. Now, what I would want to do, and I talked about this in my video a few weeks ago as well, that I would like to possibly buy this on a dip here into the 70s. So I knew $30 to $35 is big support and resistance. So there's a good chance, there's a very good chance that I will probably enter this trade in the 30s. And that's what I'm going to be looking for. Now, we are in the 25K challenge account. This is our the $4K to $25,000 challenge account. We do have a little bit more position size here. So I will probably look for a bounce in this area. Now, again, it's all about risk reward. I know here's decent support at 27. I know that this thing could probably pull back here to 20, but we have the 180-day moving average. So I might consider doing a small size or a full size. And if we don't get that bounce soon, I would close this position again. But after a really nice sell-off like this, I feel fairly confident in buying this one. So this last sell-off here before the dip was 48%. This last sell-off here was 44%. And guess what? We're roughly at this kind of 44% zone again. So I feel fairly confident that buying NKLA here is probably a fairly okay idea. I find that the risk reward is pretty nice. So if we start selling off, I would probably buy this one pre-market. Most likely. So somewhere here in this $29 zone, I would feel fairly confident with buying this one. It's pretty much that straightforward. Now, I could be wrong. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. And then I would be cutting my losses in this area, or I would average down and look for a bigger bounce, because I think averaging down this zone would not be the worst idea either. But I mean, even if it goes from 27 all the way to 20, I mean, that's a 20% loss. So, you got to be careful with this one. There's definitely a lot of risk on it. But yeah, EV was really, really following the whole hype cycle of electric vehicles. But then they came out with just a bunch of bad news. So just be very, very careful. Always do your own due diligence. Know why you're entering and exiting a trade. And, manage your risk. It's really all about managing your risk. So these are some of the tickers I'm looking at for probably the next few days here. Oh, actually, we didn't talk about Apple, but very quickly, Apple, You know, this one, AAPL, oops, I already typed it in. This one's pulling back quite a bit as well. And I always felt like Apple was a little bit too high for me to buy, and I've missed so many moves on Apple. I'm not sure if I'm going to go long on Apple. There's a chance. I don't want to rule it out. Had a nice dip here. But I'd probably rather wait for maybe some bigger support zones. This is a phenomenal run, and honestly, Apple really moves the market, and I feel like the overall market is overextended. So I would probably wait for a bigger pullback with AAPL. I don't know. I've missed this one so many times, and it's really hard for me to comment on it. But again, I probably would look for a bigger support on this one, and then just kind of buy into the dips. I wouldn't be super scared about this one, you know, going against my position. I would probably just keep averaging down into it, especially after a bigger pullback at 320. So I would treat this one almost more like an investment than a swing trade. With NKLA, that's a clear swing trade, almost a day trade. Like, I don't want to be holding NKLA very, very long. That's just I don't know. It's a whole different company and a whole different way for me to analyze the stock. So yeah, that's everything for that I'm going to be looking at here. I know it's not too much, and I know it's a very specific strategy, and everyone has a different strategy. And that is something we should all kind of acknowledge and appreciate, because we could all learn something from everyone. Now, the way I'm trading is not the way that anyone else should trade. It's something that really feeds off of my personality, and over many years, I've kind of, you know, figured out how to make some move it, and, you know, I enter and exit fairly quickly here. So it's I just want to kind of highlight that fact. Let me know what you guys think about some of these tickers. What are some tickers you guys are looking at? I would love to hear you and hear what you guys are trading. And yeah, guys, I'll see you guys first thing then on Monday morning for the live stream where we trade the market open after reviewing the watch list. Drop a like, guys, if you enjoy the content. Consider subscribing if you're new. Join the community. It's absolutely wild, good fun. And enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Ciao, ciao.